we have a minister talking about it, all of us to train regarding.
Yeah,
I know Sultan.
doing something online. Yeah, he was doing something online, but I haven't heard anything else about it.
We have maybe talking about the orientation class. Them. Is that finalized yet?
Congratulations, brother. Out of town, consistency and posture.
Consistency and
Time being, I've been doing it the way I've been doing it. Using the stuff from Chicago.
so
I already did back here in New Orleans for some reason. I moved away from New Orleans twice. Moved out to LA, moved out to New Mexico. It's I don't really hear a lot of other places say you got to laugh.
Question, right? So are there a lot of the believers that are currently here, do we have a lot of people that actually from New Orleans that are here, or people kind of moved in?
Hey, the majority of the the majority are from here.
Yeah. Interesting, because in Nashville, most of us came from somewhere else.
Really?
Yeah, most of us. It's interesting. You got a handful of people that's actually born and raised in Nashville.
Oh no, the majority is from here. When I first came here, there were a few believers from Chicago that was here, but the majority has always been, man, just maybe 95%.
Okay. Yeah, it's like the exact opposite.
Exactly, yeah.
Because again, I'm from, but you know, with Nashville being, you got 4 HBCUs.
Exactly,
So there's a lot of people coming there from different places,
Exactly.
areas. So
That's true, because it was like that for me in Monroe. I was in Monroe, Virginia.
yes, sir.
So we had Grambling State University, so yeah, like, it was like a college transient type place.
Exactly.
So maybe that also helps with the culture here too, because everybody is from here.
Yeah. That's one thing I love about New Orleans, man. The culture here is incredibly authentic. It's unique.
definitely unique.
It's unique. It's nothing like it nowhere else.
Nowhere else.
So we're gonna start. You ready for the launch?
So first I'll just open up in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. So let me know when you're ready.
1 minute.
Okay, so in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, we thank Almighty God Allah for His coming in the person of Master Farah Muhammad. We thank Him for raising up the most humble and honorable Elijah Muhammad, and we thank Him for the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In those names, I'd like to greet y'all to greet the words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum. So most of you all are familiar with this series that we've been doing for the purpose of just, you know, hearing the testimonies. In the Bible, it says that the dragon was defeated by the blood of the Lamb and the power of their testimonies. And we all have a testimony, and we shouldn't be afraid to share our testimony because it's our personal bearing witness to the power of Master Farah Muhammad and the teachings, right? And it's interesting, it says for the power of their testimony, not the power of their wealth, not the power of their guns, it's the power of their testimony, because this world has created an environment that's such a degree where people don't think that people can reform and transform their lives. So each and every one of us are an example of that. So one of the things that inspired this, Brother Samuel, is when the minister said his testimony, he said that his witness bearers are too damn silent, right?
That's right.
So since then, I've been trying to get as many people, and when people come into the city, we all, after they do the lecture, we do this, and we start off where it will kind of be, they'll be standing behind the roster, and we tried it with one person, they kind of like veered off, and we decided after that to start doing the interview style. And the interview style, I like it. It's more personal.
Yeah.
And the first time we did it, it was with Brother Down. Was the first time we did an interview.
Yes, sir.
So we have a bunch of them in the archives, not the interview style, but the testimonies. We have a bunch of them, but we haven't uploaded them yet. We're gonna have to do it. You can hear me? And so we're starting off, like I said, just be you. And as you say, you're all about being your authentic self as well. We really, did you all enjoy the lecture?
Yes, sir.
So we were in Detroit, I think, for Xavier's Day, and he told me I was in the city. I'm like, what? I missed it. He reached out to me on this other app, and which I don't really check much. But how I fixed it when we were in Chicago at the Palace on last Sunday.
Yes, sir.
And I asked him when he was going to be in the area again. He told me he would be in the area this week. I'm like, what? You gotta come on down. So he's here. So I'm always big about, getting people to have the opportunity, believers to have the opportunity to hear from people from different cities. So to start off, our first question, just tell us, your brief history before Islam.
Man, well, first and foremost, I thank Allah for him coming in the person of Master Farquhar. There would be nothing to talk about if he didn't come.
Yes, sir.
You don't need to be sitting here for the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and that beautiful man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I thank you, and thank you, Brother Willie, for extending the invitation. From the moment I first actually came in contact with you, brother, you've always expressed a very genuine, down-to-earth spirit, and I'm thankful for you, the work that you're doing, and the extension of genuine, down-to-earth spirit. So thank you. So thank you. As I was sitting here listening to you, man, pardon me, I started becoming a little bit overwhelmed emotionally as you were talking about a testimony, and just thinking about my experience growing up. I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, so between Aurora, which is in the west suburbs, 30 minutes from the west side, and the west side of Chicago, is where I spent the majority of my early life. I did not grow up with my father. I didn't even know who my father was. Never had anything. I saw pictures later on, but never got a chance to really know anything about him. I grew up with my mother working double shifts nearly every day. My early memories of my mother are of her in the bed sleeping because she worked so much. There's a big age gap between myself and my 3 older siblings, my 2 older brothers. My mother had my oldest brother when she was 18, had me when she was 35. So there's a big gap between them. Both of my brothers, I come from a gang-banging environment. I didn't personally gang-bang, but a lot of members of my family, cousins, brothers, they were all gangster disciples. So I grew up in gang culture, with seeing a lot of the activities that take place, people dying, people, selling drugs, the usual, depending on where you come from. That's for the most part what I grew up around in my environment, but I also grew up in the church. See, my mother was determined to not have me go the route of my family, so she sought to put me away. Even though she wasn't going to church, she made sure I got there. So she sent me with my sister, and my sister, for the most part, raised me. She was 14 when I was born. So I was with my sister so much, I was calling her mom. And I just didn't know. And so everywhere they saw me, they saw my sister, they saw me tagging along. So many of my early memories grew up between there and also my brother, my second oldest brother, David. he was a professional boxer. That was his way to escape the gang culture. So my early memories are also attached to following him to the gym. So I've been around fighting a long time. So between that, church, all of that is somewhat the environment that I kind of came along. I grew up with strong women in my family, and the men that were present, I sought to gain a little piece of fatherhood, so to speak, from the men that were around here and there. There was you play uncle at church over here, so those were my examples that I saw. We weren't rich, but we weren't dead poor either. We was right there, but my mother would remind me often when I would ask for something. She said, "Boy, don't you know we are poor? You asking me for all this stuff in the store." But that's some of my early beginnings. Prior to coming into the Nation of Islam, I grew up. That environment was very called a rubber band effect. Most of the people that left, ended up coming back, and then I didn't really see them being very productive. I was very determined to get away, and I told them, there was 3 things I told them when I left to go to school. I said, for one, I'm leaving, I ain't coming back no more. I told them that. And I'm leaving, I ain't coming back no more. And I said, I'm not coming back to church no more either. I spent so much time in the church that I said I ain't want to see the inside of another church again. I ain't know I was coming to the Nation of Islam.
Oh, wow.
But I kept my word. I didn't move back, and I didn't. The only time I'm in the church now is to fellowship and try to uplift the people and give them the word that comes from our example in our midst. So that's.
Have you you mentioned about your father not being present? Have you ever had the opportunity to meet him, or you still don't know?
When I was 21, I met him for the first time. My mother had his social, his blood type, and everything on him, but never pursued her. I remember being a boy, and I'm like, "Man, why don't you get some child support or something? Like, what's up?" And she never did. She never pressed her for anything. She just had the information. Lo and behold, this is back in the days when people still had address books. My mother had all this information in the address book, and so I looked it up one day when I went back home to visit, and I said something told me to just let me look them up. And I did my little reconnaissance and research, and I ended up finding a number that was my paternal grandmother's number. And when I called her, thinking it was him, she said, and I told her who I was, and she just started, yeah, I'm named after my father, by the way.
Wow.
I tell Sam, I just hate he never, took care of his business and responsibilities like he did, and I just want to see you. And she kept, long story short, she ended up connecting me with him, and she kept telling me she wanted to see me. I never met her. She kept telling me that she wanted me to, she just basically letting me know she wasn't going to be here much longer. And that went on for about a year. I kept saying, I'm going to go see, and I met her at the casket.
Wow.
Because I had something inside of me that just, I got to the point to where I felt like, even when I met her, I didn't need her. Mm. Like, what good can you do for me now? I'm a grown man now. What can you provide for me? My first conversation with him, I asked him basically the inevitable question, like, dude, what happened? I was told last time I saw you, I was 2. Mm. So why did you disappear? Never to show up again. And his response was kind of weak, basically like he didn't know for sure if, I was his. And I'm like, dude, my mom had your whole DNA structure. Like, come on, man. So eventually he had to, I found out that was a pattern that he had where he kind of, didn't really stick around. Because he had I had other siblings. I knew I had an older sibling, a sister, but I didn't know I had a younger one. So we established contact, and I would say the relationship is a little better. We talk and communicate a lot more, but for many years I had it inside me where I was like, I don't need this dude. So I never really
reached out to him because I had other examples, and I felt that the minister's the only father I need, However, having some understanding about myself is something that I learned that to connect, even though he wasn't there, I shared DNA with that man. So it taught me to have to humble myself to a point to where I could get past that resentment that was there, even though I tried to act like it wasn't there. It was there. And I even admit to this day, some aspects of it still exist that I have to, process and deal with and allow myself to even, really get through. But I was able to, finally reach out to him, and here I am. I'm 36 now. All these years later, we just talked to him, and he's scheduled to come visit me before he goes sees my sister. So yeah, we've established contact since then.
So how did you come to eventually join the Nation of Islam?
It's a funny story.
I can tell you smile.
I came into the Nation of Islam after getting my butt whooped. I'm gonna tell you how that happened. So, okay, I was in college, in undergrad, and I started studying Islam just in general at my freshman year at the age of 18. And then I came across my roommate at the time. He also from Chicago. His father never joined the Nation, but he had every cassette tape that you could think of ever done. Final Call, going all the way back to the Final Call building in the late 70s. He had everything, and he came with a suitcase full of the minister's tapes and books. So the first thing that I read, of course, was Message to the Black Man. And in the first few pages, all the years of spooky teaching got blown away in 3 pages.
Wow.
And it was difficult for me because I grew up in the Pentecostal church. And this stuff wasn't like what I was taught. So I'm sitting there reading this, and I'm like, this ain't right, but I couldn't stop turning the pages. I'm like, no, this can't be true. But so I go to try to disprove what the messenger of Allah said, and I kept finding more things to validate what he said. So it was like one of them things where if you can't beat them, join them. So I submitted to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching from Message to the Black Man. What convinced me was in Fall of America when I got to that book. And there was a particular chapter in which he said, I have the keys to both heaven and hell.
Wow.
He said, you can accept it to live or reject it to die. And I was like, damn, I ain't never heard nobody talk like, I submit. So from that point, I couldn't find anything that stood more resolute, more true, more strongly than the words that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke. Now, what caused me to actually joke, I started the mosque had an event on campus.
Mosque in Nashville?
Yes, sir. There was a Nation of Islam event that took place on the campus of Tennessee State University. At this time, I'm in my sophomore year. So I'm 19. And in the student center, the meeting was held on the 3rd floor. And both of them had transitioned, but I saw Minister Abdul Hakim, who was originally out of Mosque number 7 in New York. He was the minister that was teaching at the mosque the day that Malcolm was assassinated. He then moved to Alabama, but he was teaching in Nashville that day. And I heard him teaching. I mean, just masterful with the word. And I saw Minister Majid, who was the representative in Nashville, who originally came out of Cleveland, and he stood up in the rebuilding, took Nashville. And when I saw Minister Majid, I looked at him. I remember sitting in the audience, and I looked at him, and the Spirit told me, you need to help him. Didn't know why. So when it came for acceptances, this was back when, I don't know what it was like in New Orleans, but back then, we had a player's card with a yellow card. So I signed that player's card, raised my hand, and went up there and shook him and shook his hand. And from that day, I started going to orientation class like the next class. And I spent time in there, and I was in there with a couple of brothers, brothers off the street, and the ego inside of me felt that I didn't really need it because I felt that it was like, I got the teachers, I don't need to really join and all that. And so I went back to my dorm room, and I had a different roommate at this time that I didn't really see eye to eye with. And the brother, how do I say, he was a little soft, and he would be on the phone with his girlfriend like all night long. You remember there's a Budweiser commercial a long time ago where this dude was in the corner. He's like, no, you say it first. No, you say it first. No, you say it first. And that was kind of like that. And his friends like snatched the phone about the cord or whatever. And so I called myself doing that out of ego. I was really full of myself at the time. I was hot because it was like 3 a.m. I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous. So I get up and snatch the cord. I'm like, hey man, I need you to go. I ain't getting off the phone. I snatched the cord out the phone, just real disrespectful. I turn around and my man decides to grab. He tackled me from behind in the dark. But I tell you, my head hit the little air conditioning unit I own, and next thing you know, I saw the fist of glory coming from the sky. Wow. And right then in that moment, because I should have never have gotten my butt whooped in that way, ever. Because I come from a martial arts background, I'm trained and all this, but Allah stopped, he held my hand. Nothing I could do, I was froze. I knew at that moment, your ego has caused you to be in this condition. You need to submit. And from that moment forward, I knew right there in the midst of a butt whooping that it was because I chose to rebel rather than submit. So from that point, it caused me to realize that I need to go home and accept my own and be myself and not play with the mission and not play Muslim, but be Muslim. And that's how I came to the Nation of Islam.
That is it.
Not many people know that story.
But I appreciate you even sharing that and the humility and for you to be able to share that, because most people don't talk about, when we talk about our old time fighters, people always talk about the W's, but we don't talk about the L's.
Don't talk about them L's.
Yeah. So I appreciate you even sharing that. So what have you've been in the Nation of Islam for how long now?
This would be 18 years this year.
What have been some of your most profound lessons that you have learned?
The most profound lesson that I could say, I thank Allah that I came in here with this spirit that's still with me today, is to understand that just because I'm coming into Allah's nation, which is perfect, that the people in it are not perfect. Yes. A lot of people come in with this expectation that people are perfect, and when they meet reality, it turns them away because they feel like they've been betrayed by something, or they feel as if it ain't right. No, the nation is perfect, the people ain't. We're on a path to perfection. So from the very beginning, that lesson I took with me that didn't allow me to get dissuaded or dismayed because I'm running into people that's acting ignorant. Or I'm running into all of these different issues that's I never look, because I'm not here for them. I didn't accept Islam for no captain, for no lieutenant, for no minister. When I signed it had Master Fard Muhammad's name in care of Elijah Muhammad. Those are the names that I saw. So I didn't come for nobody else. So for me, that was the one that stuck with me. And also the example that the minister has of humility, of learning to not make yourself the subject of every sentence. To not put yourself at the center of everybody's universe. Wow. And to allow myself to be used in a way that Allah wants me to be used, and not put myself in places where I'm not wanted. So those were things that I learned by following that example and watching the way the minister moves. I really studied every move. I watched tapes over and over and over again, his mannerisms, the way he handled what caused him to raise his voice, all of those things that stuck with me. But also watching how he deals with the people, how patient he is in dealing with madness. So those, to me, are just some of the lessons that I can go off on a tangent on that. But
Those are two profound lessons.
Absolutely.
You in 18 years, you know, like Allah talks about in the Holy Quran how at least once a year, the believers would be tried with something, right?
Absolutely.
And we all go through some trials, but the fact that we're here, we still survive. Was there any trials that you can talk about that you faced and you overcame? And if so, how? And the reason why I'm asking, because other people will watch this and we talk about a testimony.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. Very much so. There's two very, very difficult trials that I can speak off top. The first would be divorce. Tremendous trial. When I went through my divorce with my previous marriage, I'm dealing with, you know, babies that it really is a death. Right. And when I realized my children, now for example, now I'm here because my children live in Louisiana. Their mother, my first wife, is actually from Louisiana. So they live in Baton Rouge. And my babies, however, you know, they grew up in Nashville. They were with their father. I'm going from seeing them every day, taking them to school and daycare, and feeding them, changing them, getting up, you know, just all of that, and then in one day it's gone. I remember the day I dropped my children off before they moved to Louisiana. It was October 24th, 2014. And when I dropped them off, I knew that there was a shift. It felt like almost that my fatherhood was dying. Cool. On top of me being a husband was dying. All of those things, it really allowed me to look at myself and to see, you know, people oftentimes, when they go through stuff like that, you know, it's always, if you listen to somebody, it's all, well, they did. What did I do that contributed to the death of this? And for me, that was a real trying time because my whole world shifted. Everything that I knew that I stood upon, everything that I was used to doing was now transformed in a way that I could not really alter or change. So I had to get out of my mind that it was, you know, that I lost something and to actually see what I can gain from this experience, how I can grow from this, how it can strengthen my bond with my children, and inshallah one day hopefully mend all the wounds that were present to establish a true friendship to where we can parent and love on these children the way that they need to. It doesn't always work that way. People have these things in their mind that they want it to be a certain kind of way, and we use all of these celebrity examples, and that just ain't real. You know, my situation wasn't like that. You know, I wasn't Babyface and Tracy. We ain't had these cool, you know, where we could just be cool. It didn't work like that in my world. So, you know, at the end of the day, that was a very severe time. And it is something that I'm still learning and growing from. But
How have you survived this thus far?
Brother, with the faith of Allah. If I did not have Allah in this, I would not be here. Because I wouldn't have anything to hold, because I put everything on that I thought anyway. But apparently I still had enough resting on Allah that He allowed me to still be here to this day. So if it were not for the strength that Allah had instilled in me and given me, I couldn't be here to even talk about it. But the fact that I'm able to, continue to show that example to my children, to still love on them in a way that is beneficial for them, for their growth and their development, to help them retain what was instilled in them from their very beginnings. That's what keeps me, because I'm seeing them manifest gods, inside of them, and they really truly are gods, man. So that's what helps me on that. Another trial that was very severe was the first time I was responsible for bringing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to an event.
Yeah.
So I have a nonprofit organization that deals with HBCUs called Busy. So a lot of the times that you've seen Minister attached to, like the Busy conference and whatnot, we had him in Nashville a couple of times, well actually 3 times,
and had him in, Baltimore as well. We had, 3 conferences that featured him. That was one of the most difficult things in my life because that was pressure and trials and enemies internally and externally that had to be faced, because anytime you are attached to the Son of Man, everything that is around the sun gets exposed. And anytime you are put in that manner, there's a certain type of energy that comes your way. Because if you think about when the minister talks about the ignorance of the disciples, how they was fighting over who gonna sit next to, who gonna stand to the right, to the left, and who gonna get the water, and like that energy is present and it's real. I faced the type of energy that was coming from the school, where they were trying to hinder me greatly. The second time we brought them to Nashville in 2012, Tennessee State University, with its previous president, the interim president, said he can come, but then turned around and charged me $10,000 that I didn't have. Charged $4,000 for custodial services, and we didn't have no food. Charged for what else? It just all types of crazy charges that they hit me with, and by the time they were done charging me, it was about 10 grand. I ain't have a dime. So it was all on me. The minister already accepted everything is rolling now. What we gonna do? And of course, you got those waiting to see. I knew he wasn't. Nah, man, this is God's man, and I'd be damned if I'm gonna sit here and allow anything to hinder this moment from happening, because it was my dream to get the minister to come to the very university where my spiritual birth took place. I was born on the campus of Tennessee State University. So it only made sense. I had been trying since 2003. It took 9 years for the minister to come in my efforts trying to bring him to that school, because he was blacked out. You couldn't get the minister back on the college campus. So in the midst of that, I decided I got to do what I got to do. I took out a loan for $5,000, and then I raised, with the help of others, along with my partner, Brother Leonard Omar Muhammad, who's been nothing but a brother, and he's the co-founder of our organization. We went to work and raised an additional $7,000.
Come on now.
In a matter of days.
Wow.
Because we knew that this had to happen. And when the minister found out, he said, "Brother, you get the people their money back." The minister paid his own way.
Wow.
See?
Own way. And I'd never seen the minister in this manner, but that day, Minister Majid had the foresight. He said, "Brother, get a list of all the things that you spend the money on, and meet me at the hotel later." And I met him. Sure enough, the minister wanted to know every expense, and he went through that list and tore it up.
Wow.
What they charging you? You have to pay this for insurance. The school already has liability insurance, and they're making you pay for insurance. And he told, after he was done with that, he said, "Brother, I have to pray to Allah that He takes these thoughts from my mind." He said, "It's not good for me to be angry." Then he dismissed us. So that was the end of that. But I saw in the midst of that Allah's hand, because I saw the great benefit that even though I was catching hell from every angle that you could think of, I'm talking about I got a few gray hairs as a result of that. And some people say this, and I don't agree, but I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to be real. Some people say they love to see the minister come, but they love to see him go too, because of all of the
A lot of work.
a lot of work that goes into it. I don't really feel that way, but I understand. But I can tell you it's very, very trying, because you don't want to mess that up. You don't want Allah's messenger to be dissatisfied. When you love someone, and I meant to say this today, when you love someone the right way, it almost looks like worship.
That's right.
Now. See that.
When you love them the right way. That's why people, when I thought about Brother Abdul Hakim,
Yeah, he said, don't disrespect.
don't misinterpret
Yeah.
our love
Yeah.
for the minister, for worship. The reason why people think that is because when we love him the way we do, it looks like worship. And I thought to myself, why don't people confuse that with one another?
Right.
Why is it that I can't, why is it that the way I love my brother or love my sister doesn't look like worship when I'm talking about the minister? We should be talking about each other that way. But anyway, I digress. But anyway, that point is something that made me really reflect in the trial of that. It is a tremendous trial and by far one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do. I handle many things pretty well with the help of Allah, but that is one that I know that if the God were not with me, I wouldn't be able to make it on that one.
Thank you for sharing. So, you can bear witness of this too, because you've had the opportunity to be in private settings with the minister, and oftentimes a prayer, a wish, a desire I have that people can really experience the minister. Like we hear him from the rostrum, but I always tell people that the way he is in private, where he is in public, he's a million times more of that even in private. So can you talk about, those private moments where you've seen the minister's character, you've seen his love, you've seen his sacrifice, any of those things that come to mind? Or even if you had the opportunity to talk to him and he shared certain jewels with you?
Man, brother, I can say, I can bear witness 1,000% that what you see is what you get. There's nothing, it's just more intimate. When you have an opportunity, to ever embrace him, every moment that I've had to sit with him or be in his presence, I can feel and relive. We talk about it, in Dianetics they say reverie. I'm reliving the moment.
Yes.
Every time. There's a few things that stand out to me. When the last time he came to Nashville, which is 2016, and he spoke at Tennessee State University, this is prior to me coming into the post of the student minister. I was catching a lot of hell. And especially around that event, because the minister, I was already working the community very heavily. Minister Majid was very wise in how he used me to work the city. Every time the Minister Majid was asked to speak somewhere, he had me speak in his place. Wisely foreseeing that one day he wouldn't be here and that I would be in his place. So when the minister got to Nashville, then he already knew the work that was taking place in the city. I ain't been sending up no reports, but he know. How he know? I mean, he know. But the minister vindicated me in a scenario. I'm not gonna give a lot of details about it, but I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
He vindicated me because, every now and then you get some haters, people that feel some type of way about something. And the minister told me after what he saw when he came to speak to the people, he said, brother, he said, you brought 1,000 lost found for me to teach. What sin do you have?
Wow.
And he called for others in later, and they were coming in the room, and he said it again. He said, the brother brought 1,000 lost found for me to teach. What sin is he guilty of? Pardon me. There's nothing but love, real love, that comes from that man. I remember when we were in Louisville at Muhammad
Muhammad Ali's service. And the minister was being brought to his bus to leave. And I was on post. And the brother, one of the brothers from the E team had maneuvered me and told me to move somewhere else, and the minister saw me. And I tell you, as I turned around to go on the post, the minister called my name, Samuel. And everybody that was chattering around him stopped. And I ran over to him, knelt down to him, and how are you, brother? He just wanted to call my name just to come shake his hand.
Wow.
There are other moments, but there's certain things that just stick out to me.
Sharing.
Right.
And his spirit is so warm and so genuine. You don't see nothing from him that you don't get. The passion that you feel from him from the rostrum is just so more inviting when you have the opportunity to actually sit with him. And he's imparting nothing but love. And that's why I was telling brother and everybody here when we sat with him at the palace, he normally talking and teaching the whole time. By the time you finish your meal, he's still eating soup.
Wow.
Seriously. This time he was quiet, but so those are things that I noticed about him. He's always teaching and he's fulfilling the sunnah because that's how the prophet did his teaching. He taught from the dinner table, and the minister is living that embodiment of the sunnah, and he manifests nothing but the spirit of love and brotherhood, and you can tell that is a man that is filled completely with the Holy Spirit. I can go on and on.
Yeah, I mean, you got some more.
Yeah, man. There are times I can tell you where to see how he makes our lost found family feel
Welcome and love. When we were in Baltimore, and we were at a leadership meeting, and there was a sister that had spoken. Young sister, she was a teacher, and really caught the minister's attention and invited, and he sent for her to come and have dinner. She was leaving. He called her because of the spirit of God that he felt coming from her. And to see how he talks about certain ones, people are thinking, you know, when they call the minister all these names and say he's homophobic and all that. And I heard him say, speaking on a particular celebrity, I won't mention who it is, but they say the brother's a homosexual, but I don't care. I kiss my brother. I love him. And he makes those who may not really know or can put it scripturally who he is really, but they feel the messianic work coming through him, and it's something that they don't know that they're attracted to, that they love. And so the way that he handles the people, the way that he handles the people, I ain't seen nobody make people feel the way that he does. Come on, man. To see how masterful he is, the way he listens. You talking about active listening? He listens. And the way that he listens, you learn. Just by how he's sitting and listening, because he's listening with such deep, studious, intentful, very, very engaged into what you're saying. And because as you're talking to him, everything that you're saying is being broken down and separated while you're talking, and you can see him take bits and pieces out of that. I remember in the minister's his memory. Man, let me tell you, I remember the minister told me in April of 2012, he said, brother, I want you to go get your doctorate. Because he asked me, he said, where did you go? He said, I understand you graduated at Tennessee State. I said, yes, sir. He said, and I understand you got your master's. I said, yes, sir. He said, what about your doctorate? I said, I ran out of money, sir. And he started laughing. And he said, later that he wanted me to get my doctorate. He said, and your doctorate is at TSU or Vanderbilt or TSU. And I told him, he asked me what I wanted to study. And I said, international business. I was a business major. He said, "Oh, brother, that's exactly what we need, and you know, you'll be successful in that." And so that was April of 2012 when he said that. Now, when he came back in November of 2012, because he told me, he said, "You go back and tell the students I'm coming back to TSU." I'm talking to 10,000. All right, yes sir. Went to work. Came back 7 months later. And him coming back, I had enrolled in school, trying to hear and obey. However, the major that I said that I wanted to take, they didn't have at TSU. But I saw aspects of what the curriculum would be had I did international business, were in this particular program. It was an agricultural biotechnology. So I thought he would be happy to hear that I was studying that, because he kept talking about agriculture and this and that. And so when he learned that I was back in school, and he said, "So brother, I understand that you're back in school. What is it that you're studying?" I said, "Agricultural biotechnology, sir." He just looked.
Wow.
He said, "Brother, what is it that you could do with that except for work for Monsanto?"
Damn.
My little bubble got popped. So I said, okay. Then when I did the math and I did the research and went back, I looked, and lo and behold, Tennessee State University agricultural program has a direct relationship with Monsanto.
Wow.
Look at that.
That you can't put that over on this man. He has wisdom that is from the Lord of the worlds.
Yes, sir.
And there was nothing that you can't, that's Allah speaking through him. So that caused me to go back and reanalyze some things. But he remembered, he said, "Brother, that's not the major you told me that you were
Wow.
studying." He said, "No, I saw on the edge of the campus some land back there. Isn't there something that you can do to go and learn how to go into the field?" And I said, "Yes, sir. I had just purchased a community garden plot." And he was ecstatic that happened. I said, "I got it, and I got it for the believers." He was happy to hear that. He said, "But that other mess that you was in,
Wow.
what you gonna do with that? You gonna work for Monsanto?" And, you know, so those are moments that stick out to me, because those are moments that the minister, you know, touches you on a personal level, but he always connects you to the whole. So, man, I can go on and on.
That was
man. All praise be to God.
Anybody have any questions? Okay. So, what closing words would you give to the believers who are here? Those who are believers, those who are just guests here. What are your closing words?
Love ye one another, even as Farrakhan has loved you. He loves us. And I think about the fact that, you know, we're keeping him here, and have kept him here because of our inability to allow Christ to form in us. He said at the last table talk that I had with him in April of 2016 when he came, he said to us present, he said that it's clear to me that if Allah does not take me to the will and heal me, that I'm on a downward trajectory. He said that part is clear to me. And it made me think about our role in that. I play a role in that, of him being on his downward trajectory, because I ain't right, because I won't let Christ form in me. So if we really love him to the degree where people think it's worship, let Christ form in us, so we can show that love that he has inside of him, that when people see us, they see the Father. That would be what I would say in my closing words.
Well said.
One of my, this was very good, man. Praise. I like how just what you shared personally, and even what you shared with as relates to how Minister Louis Farrakhan. So Inshallah, it will be put up online by tonight, man. But we thank you for your visit.
Yes.
You'll be in and out of the state of Louisiana.
I'm
so
here,
definitely
brother.
let me
You know, man, so we have you
Absolutely.
back. So thank you all for taking the time
Thank
for
you.
being here as well. Nobody had any questions?
Yes,
There you go.
Yes, ma'am.
So
I
here,
wonder,
do that.
did you go back to school to get your PhD?
Well, it's a doctorate that he was specifically speaking of. I haven't found the program yet, and it dawned on me. He told me to do it. It didn't mean it was right then. And I'm thinking that perhaps the program hasn't become available yet because it's not time yet. So until I find that program, I will not go any further than where I went. I was already in the PhD program, but I basically opted out for another master's degree, which is in agribusiness. So that's where I stopped, but I'm not going any further, pursuing any more educationally until I see the program that I told him that I would get into.
Oh, I see. Yes, sir.
Yes, man.
Brother Nazir?
I want to thank Brother Shannon for being here, first of all.
Thank you.
And to your point about being accused, or how we as a group being accused of worshiping a minister, Brother Abdul Malik in Los Angeles, he gave me an answer for that, because I was always hearing people say, you act like you worship in spare time. He said, well, we don't worship in before, whatever's right up under that. That was a good answer.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. That was
Beautiful.
Yeah,
It was.
beautiful. Right up under that.
That's right. That's right. Right, you absolutely right.
And we all know that the minister doesn't want us worshiping him anyway.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you all. May Allah
Thank you,
bless
brother.
everybody.
Thank you as well.
And a lot of this stuff, man,